Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. I am your host once again, the Tool Man. Um, my name is Dylan, by the way. If you didn't know, you can look it up in the description. So, guys, we're going to talk about something that we take for granted, and it's right. And you're looking at it right now. If you're looking at me on a screen somewhere, on a phone, whether it's a phone, laptop, computer, on the internet, okay. Um, the reason the internet exists is because of the trades. It's what I push all day long here on the channel. And without the trades, you wouldn't even have an internet. Okay, that's the crazy thing about it, right? The trades get such a bad rap, right? Such a blue collar bad rap. But without the trades, you wouldn't even be able to look at me right now and communicate on these devices all day long. So that's the funny joke about it all. Okay, so we're gonna dive into how this all works, what exactly is the internet, and why the trades are so important to its existence, and why the skilled trades are, being that there's a shortage of skilled trades workers, that the internet can actually go down one day, you know. And we've all experienced outages, when the internet kind of goes on the blink and you can't get access, and how you feel when that happens, right? Some people lives depends on the internet, right? Their livelihoods, I should say, depend on the internet. I myself, what I do obviously depend on the internet, and so you're actually depending on a skilled tradesperson to actually keep all of this going, and we're going to dive into how that exists, or how that all works. Okay. So anytime you hit send, right? Like, just say you want to stream a video, or you want to send a text message or something like that. What exactly is happening when you do that, right? Is it just going into the ear somewhere and it magically appears on somebody's phone? That it may seem like that, but that's not the case. That's not the case. Okay. Anytime you hit send, okay, that data, right, is going to travel through what they call fiber optic cables. Now, I did a video, I think it was maybe three years ago. It was one of my earlier videos where I showcased some fiber optic technicians preparing fiber optic cables to be put into the ground, right? Matter of fact, that the name of that video is called Awesome. Watch these pro technicians prepare to lay fiber optic cables. So you can go look that up. It's in the catalog. So that's what happens, right? It doesn't just magically appear on somebody else's device. There's a lot of infrastructure between your phone, your computer, and someone else's computer, and all that infrastructure, fiber optic cables, um, and everything else, they have to be installed and built by tradespeople. Okay, guys. So the data, when you hit send, it goes into the fiber optic cables, and that fiber optic cable, right, is usually about 6 feet on the ground. Okay, according to my research on this topic. So they're buried on the ground, or you have these cell towers, right? You have these cell towers, and data travels through those as well. Okay, but those cell towers, guess what they're built of? They're built of like steel and metal and all that. And who has to put that together? Well, the welders, okay, the iron workers, they have to put all this stuff together, and then they have to erect these things. Okay, and these things can be like 200 feet tall, right? So just that alone, the fiber optic cables, the towers, right? We just covered that aspect of it alone. That's not even the half of it, right? They require tradespeople, right? The fiber optic technicians, the welders for the towers, the iron workers, that right there. Without those particular tradesmen, you have no internet. You have no way to get your data from your computer or phone to someone else's. So I could stop talking right now, and you will understand the importance of what I'm telling you about how important the trades are just to keep this whole thing going. Okay. But anyway, let's continue. let's entertain ourselves to continue. Okay. Okay. So you have this data, right? You have this data that has to go somewhere, and you have this concept of, or this, what they call the cloud, right? What is the cloud actually? Okay. Is when you think of it and you hear people, you have these tech people talk about, oh, it's going to go into the cloud, or yeah, I'm storing my data in the cloud. Do you think they're actually storing it in the actual cloud? I mean, it sounds very high tech, but all it is it's being stored in another bigger computer, right, with more storage space. That's all it is. So and you can call them data centers. Okay, that's what they're called. Okay, so that's all the cloud is. But these data centers, not only do they have to be built, which requires tradesmen as well, right? Construction workers, you need electricians, you need HVAC technicians, because these data centers have to be kept at a certain temperature, which is around 68 degrees. Okay, so you need all these, once again, HVAC technicians, electricians, construction workers to build the actual data centers, right? You also need welders and metal fabricators for the what they call the cable management. So right there, I just listed off about 5 or 6 trades that are responsible for you being able to use your computer, use your phone, and just pray that none of this stuff goes down. So let's just say the temperature system, right? The HVAC system fails, okay? And the cooling system fails as well. Guess what? That's going to throw everything off, and you won't have an internet. You won't have a cloud, okay? Because things are going to overheat. There's a lot of data going through those data centers, okay? And they need to be maintained at a certain temperature. And if that, like I said, if that fails, then that's it. You have no internet. If some electrical problem happens on a vast scale, or let's just say there's some cyber attack, right? You're done, okay? Or we're done, I should say. All right, until it can get back up. So once again, guys, you need tradespeople to take care of all of this. So I don't care if you have AI, all over the place, without the data centers, right? Without the fiber optic cables, without the HVAC technicians, without the cooling systems, without the electricians, without the construction workers, without the people that build the cell towers, without the people that lay the fiber optic cables and splice them all together, right? These are tradespeople. I'm not talking about somebody sitting in an office shuffling papers and making big deals and signing contracts. I'm talking about the men and women out there, okay, that are actually doing the physical labor to make sure all of this stuff is put together, okay, and not just put together and built, but actually maintained, right? And not just maintained, but if something happens, they can go and fix it. So anytime you have an internet outage or experiencing that, it doesn't just magically come back online. No, people are out there digging the holes, trying to get to the fiber optic cable. If there's a problem, if it's damaged, having to fix that. You also, talking about fiber optic cables, okay? I said they're about 6 feet on the ground, but they also lay cables all throughout the ocean floor, all over the world, that allow data to travel internationally and globally, okay? Guess who has to lay those cables? You have marine divers that specialize in laying fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. Okay, do they get any credit for all of this? Do you even know who they are, right? They're considered tradespeople as well. Not to mention that's probably a very dangerous job. I don't know how much it pays, but the tradespeople are the backbone of all of this stuff that you have the luxury of using today. Okay, without them, none of this stuff exists. All right, let's talk more about that. Okay, Let's talk about it says right now there are over 1.5 million miles of fiber optic cable buried underground in the United States alone. Globally, there are approximately 900,000 miles of submarine cables laying on the ocean floor that carry 99% of all international data. Okay. So let's talk about some of the people that are responsible for that. Telecom technicians. They're the ones who splice the hair-thin glass fibers with microscopic precision. Then you have the heavy equipment operators. They're the ones that got to dig the trenches and they got to lay the actual conduit. Then you have the marine cable technicians who work on specialized ships to lay and actually repair these cables. And then you have utility linemen. I used to do lineman work, I don't know, back in the 90s, the pole work for a brief stint. Okay. And that's actually a very dangerous job itself. Okay. So they're the ones who lay the fiber in the air up on the poles. Okay, guys. So you have all of these people, right, that we call tradesmen. I don't know. I just listed more of them, right? About, I don't know, eight or nine of them who are responsible for keeping your internet going, for allowing you to lay in bed late at night and text your girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband, okay, and I love you text in the middle of the night. Without these people, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? It'll go back to the old days where you didn't see them until they got home, right? You couldn't be in constant communication with them. But that's a whole other conversation, right? That's a whole other conversation. All right. Okay. So let's talk about this shortage. Let's talk about this skilled trade shortage I keep bringing up. It says the numbers are really getting out of hand. Okay. It says the average age of electricians in the U.S. is 42 years old. That means they're retiring after that age. Okay. After or at least not too soon after that. Right. It says 53% of skilled construction workers are 45. And in the next decade, we expect over 1 million skilled tradespeople to retire. Okay, so you see that they're in the 40s, that 40s area, because, if they've worked in the skilled trades for a while, they're probably tired of all the physical labor. The body's all beaten up and they're probably, ready to get out. And I think that's what these stats are reflecting right now. Okay. It says for every 5 skilled workers who retire, we're only training 1 replacement, guys. Okay, so that's a 5-to-1 ratio. Not enough replacements are on, coming online, right? So that's why you have this gap here. Okay, electrician programs, the wait lists on those are, down. Okay, well, enrollment is down, it's saying, and many telecom companies report they cannot find qualified fiber technicians. So just because of this shortage, right? This luxury of this internet that we have today, right? It may not always be a luxury, right? I think I mentioned cyber attacks, right? Especially in this political climate that we have today, it's no telling what can happen, right? So your world can change overnight. Internet data traffic doubles roughly every 3 years. So 5G deployment requires 10 times more infrastructure than 4G, right? AI and cloud computing are driving unprecedented data center construction. The push for rural broadband means building infrastructure in underserved areas. So the demand is there. It's not going anywhere, right? The demand is there, but the supply of skilled trades people aren't. Okay, so that's what we need to change. Okay, and that's why I try to bring this awareness on my channel. That's a big portion of the mission for the channel, is to bring awareness to this, not to mention the tremendous opportunity for young people to get into fields that could really put them in a good place financially. And once again, I don't want to say that just because you make a lot of money that you're financially responsible. No, like financial literacy and responsibility comes with whatever amount of money you make. But just the fact that you can make it is a good, really a good thing. And the trades, right? And it doesn't mean you're digging ditches when I mention the trades. It doesn't mean that at all. It could mean, You can be an IT person, right? Anything, you can classify anything as a trade. But I'm particularly talking about what's not classified or considered as white collar. We call it blue collar work. But it's very technical. A lot of these trades are very technical. And like if you're splicing wires in fiber optics, you have to be just as precise as a surgeon on a table when working on a patient, right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just a different kind of, it's a different material you're working on. All right. So there's a lot of opportunity here. So while the trades are being like stigmatized in schools because they close down the shop classes and all that stuff, or they're not promoting them as much, they're promoting that 4-year degree, that piece of paper, for various reasons that I've spoken on before. Just use your imagination on that. While they're doing all that and talking down on the trades, they didn't talk about that electricians can make, an experienced electrician can make $80,000 to $120,000 a year, right? They didn't talk about fiber optic technicians starting at 60 grand with a whole lot of room for advancement. They didn't talk about the tower technicians, the ones going up there and working on the fiber optic cables in the air. They didn't talk about them earning 6 figures with experience. Of course, with experience, right? They didn't talk about the HVAC technicians running their own businesses, okay, and making 6 figures. They didn't talk about all of that. And they didn't talk about doing that with zero debt, right? Or very low debt. I know some of these training programs, they do charge, right? But so what, right? At least you're not being saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for a 4-year degree that you may never pay off. No, you're going right into a field where if you're disciplined enough, I don't care what anybody says, you can really advance and make some good cheddar, without all that debt. Okay. So it's all about a perception problem. And that's where I come in as far on this channel, and why I do a lot of tool tutorials to appeal not just to aspiring tradespeople, but to the DIY person, the homeowner, whoever wants to get things done themselves. That's what this channel is all about. But, when it comes to a more broader approach to stemming some of the issues in particularly certain communities that are what they call marginalized communities, I feel it's my duty to go ahead and disseminate this information. I mean, what else am I on the internet for? I'm not on here to dance and tell jokes. If you like that, you can find that somewhere else. Every now and then, though, I'll try to tell a joke, but I've been told that I'm not funny at all. So anyway, there you go. Yeah, so it's a perception problem once again, right? Changing that perception. Back in the days, though, it wasn't a perception problem. The trades were actually respected, right? They were respected. I don't know how. Well, it's all about propaganda, right? You can make anything into a problem if you want to, if you have an agenda. Okay. So let's see here. What are some of the consequences if you don't have enough skilled trades workers, guys? Let's see here. Let's look at this. In 2022, a major cloud provider, we talked about what the cloud was, right? It's just a bunch of big old computers in a building somewhere. It's not out there, that's where your data is stored or goes. All right. It says in 2022, a major cloud provider announced plans for 3 new data centers in the Midwest. Construction work was delayed by 18 months because they couldn't find enough qualified electricians and HVAC technicians. So this is what every month of that delay meant. Okay, 50 million in lost revenue, slower service for the customers, and increased strain on existing facilities. And this is not the only time this has happened. Okay, that's just one example. So imagine that happening on a broader scale because of lack of workers, right? Imagine that. Let's see here. The federal government has allocated billions for rural, okay, that's out there in the farmlands and all that, rural broadband expansion. But having the money doesn't matter if you don't have enough technicians, fiber technicians, tower crews, electricians, to power these installations on these new sites, right? That you would build. So a lot of these projects are being pulled back, right? Scaled back, and that's a shame because, as far as you look at some of these other countries. I think of China, right? And if some of you guys have seen some of the videos of how technologically advanced China is, I don't think they're having this problem, and there could be many reasons for that. But imagine if the focus was on building the infrastructure that we needed to be able to compete. And I don't even know you should say compete, right? Because this world is it's all about competition between nations and all that. Who's the fastest? Who went to the moon first? And all this stuff. Why can't it just be about advancement, right, instead of competition? But that's a whole other mindset. That's a whole other mindset. But anyway, imagine if we rearranged our priorities when it came to this, how far ahead we would be when it came to our technological landscape. And tech isn't everything, but I mean, it's a lot, right? Even with this whole AI boom, and we see where things are going, right? Automation and all that. You got the driverless cars and all that stuff. But I mean, like I said, you go to China and you see all kinds. I've never been to China, but I've seen the videos. I've seen what's going on over there, and it's amazing what they're doing. And I think that's because they have their people on, they got their people in check. They got their priorities in check. And you can say, well, it's because of they're forced to do it and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, they're getting it done, right? Okay, so where were we here? So these projects are being scaled back. That could be happening at the moment. It could be giving people jobs, families could be fed. All this stuff is being scaled back because of lack of, promoting the skilled trades more, right, in favor of whatever else. And now you want to sit up and complain about it when you had the chance to just keep it going like it was, but you had another agenda, whatever that agenda was, to take, shop class out of schools, high schools, and, focus on pushing everybody into another kind of system that you have set up for them. And everybody's not meant for that, because, some people are going to be priced out of that system. Where are those people that are going to be priced out of that system? Where are they going to be left? Where are they going to be left? Okay. Everybody can't afford a 4-year degree. And I think, some powers that be, whoever you want to call them, they know this, right? Why would you take another more affordable way for somebody to advance in life away from them? Why would you do that, right? Because do you want a lopsided economy to keep the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer? That's what it sounds like. But let me not go off on a tangent there. All right. So when you don't have enough technicians, you pretty much what's going to happen is you're going to have whatever's in place already. It's not going to be able to be maintained. Okay, so these fiber optic cables and all that, they got to be maintained. And if they start getting old, because things get old, physical things, not just human beings, but actual physical things get old too. These connections, especially man-made things, they get old and they start to fail more. Okay. Whatever the cell tower equipment, the data center cooling systems, they need proper maintenance. The electrical systems, they need maintenance. So what you're actually doing when you're not addressing this system, this skilled trade shortage, what you're actually doing is you're creating what they call a technical debt, okay, into the system or the infrastructure, right? And that's going to have to be paid eventually. And unfortunately, if it's not paid, just like anything else, it'll fail. Like those old bridges from way back in the day. You want to drive over something like that? You want to take a risk of driving over a bridge that's been there forever and it's old and it has problems? You probably don't want to drive over that. So you're going to have people that are saying, "Man, look, this system is this infrastructure is so old because it hasn't been maintained, because we haven't push the trades in schools. Do I actually want to store my data in that cloud where I, the cooling system may just go down and I lose everything? I lose all my data. So that's what happens when your priorities in the wrong place. Okay. And you could take that into many different scenarios when it comes to this subject here. All right, what else? Let's see here. Every new technology requires infrastructure, okay? Driverless cars, I just talked about that. Autonomous vehicles, same thing. They need 5G networks with ultra low latency. So the little Waymos you see driving around my city, they can't function without skilled trades workers either, right? They can't function without those 5G networks. They can't function without those cell towers, without those fiber optic cables. Do you want to get in a driverless car and that stuff fails? One day, you're in a driverless car, enjoying the sights and speeding down the freeway or wherever it's, and then the cooling system in the cloud fails, or some cell tower fails, and your car just stops working and you're in it. See, these are the kind of things that you got to think about. AI, okay. Once again, I mentioned that requires like a whole bunch of data centers. Okay. Virtual reality, right? They need what they call gigabit internet. Smart cities, they need millions of sensors, okay, all connected and powered. So yeah, you can't none of this stuff could happen without people behind them, okay? Infrastructure people, not just somebody typing on a keyboard all day, writing code and stuff. And I'm not knocking writing code. I think everything's important. I'm not, knocking it at all. But you can't neglect the basic infrastructure of how this stuff runs, is all I'm saying, okay? And they need people, and they need tradespeople, what we call tradespeople, to do it, right? So I hope I'm getting through to some young person that sees the opportunity in today's world to really, get into a field that can, be very rewarding, okay? Because you're keeping everything going, right? It's people like you that keeps everything going. So salute to all the tradespeople out there that are involved in everything I'm talking about when it comes to this, okay? All right. So let's talk about money. Okay, the finances behind all of this here. It says basic economics. When demand exceeds supply, prices are going to rise. So what we're seeing now is installation costs are increasing 20 to 30% in some markets. Emergency repair costs are going up. Companies are bidding against each other for limited qualified contractors, and project budgets are expanding to account for labor shortages. So, if you're thinking you're getting away from something because you're not training up the workforce that needs to be trained up, you're not getting away with it. You think you are, but you're not. You're paying for it in some way. Okay. I just laid out the list right there that I read to you. Okay. And unfortunately for people that have nothing to do with this, they're not in the trades, they're just living their lives. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to pass the cost on to you and me, where we have higher bills, internet bills. We have higher this, higher that. And, that's just the way it goes, guys. It's the person on the lowest rung of the ladder, usually the customer. And I don't want to say the customer is lower than the, provider, but you're the target, right? Because of this lopsided situation here. You're the target. And your price is going to go up. And it has nothing to do with inflation. It has to do with, lack of priorities. All right, let's see here. So my whole purpose of this talk tonight is to, once again, get through to some people out there, young people, and when I say young, that can be 20 to 30, 18 to 30. If you want to get started early in this, and it doesn't matter. You can become a welder at age 50. I mean, come on, I've seen it happen. I used to be a welding instructor, and so I've taught all ages how to weld and stuff like that. So, but we need a younger workforce, stronger workforce, fresh workforce to come in and basically revamp and bring fresh blood into this, building the infrastructure and all that. Because once again, like I said, a lot of these people, electricians and so forth, and these other tradespeople, their retirement age is in the 40. They're tired of it all, so we need people to replace them. Okay, big gap, big opportunity there. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So let's see some of the things is saying here to do. Stop treating college as the only path to success. Absolutely, because it's not. It can actually be the path to abject poverty if you're saddled with that, right? If you're not strategic about going to a 4-year college, if you don't make strategic choices and strategic moves, that it's just like you're basically paying to go to throw your money away, and then not only throw your money away, but be saddled with debt, a whole lot of debt after you leave, if you even finish, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people that they wake up in the middle of their college experience and say, man, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? And then they, they leave and they quit and they end up becoming a truck driver. Nothing wrong with being a truck driver. You can make some good money doing that too. Let's talk about trucking for example. And I want to specifically talk about how that field has opened a lot of opportunities for people in marginalized communities who have been incarcerated and so forth. You can come out of the penal system, right, and get your CDL, start off as a driver, and then eventually, make some money, and probably in 6 months' time, if you're really hustling, get you a truck yourself, right? Get a truck yourself. You can have the cash to pay for a used truck. You can get a new one, make put some payments down on it, and make payments. But you're in business right away. No debt. Only debt you have is maybe the truck payment. And I'm not trying to make it sound simple. Yeah, you're gonna have to have insurance. You're gonna have to have money in case accidents happen, in case you get flat tires and all, stuff that happens in trucking. But all I'm saying is every field has its own risks, but that's, I'm talking about the internet now, but transportation, man, that's a whole nother conversation. I mean, you need to transport this stuff, right? Stuff needs to be transported. They don't have enough driverless trucks out there yet. So trucking is not going anywhere soon. And for somebody just, coming out of the system or whatever, that's one of the best ways to get back on your feet. You don't have to stay doing it, but it's definitely a good way to get back on your feet. And you actually could build a decent business out of it. Even with the ups and downs of the economy, because trucking does get affected by that as well. But you can definitely do some things in that world. Okay. All right. What else, God? So, like I said, stop treating college as the only path to success. Highlight the intellectual challenge of trades work, and this is a very good point as well, guys. Let's talk about welding, for example. I think people just look at welders and they see, oh, they got the helmet on, they got this torch, and they got flames coming out of it, and they join two pieces of metal together. But actually, the welding there's a lot of science behind these trades. There's a lot of science behind welding, right? You have to learn about the different metals. You have to learn about a lot about electricity. A welder itself is nothing but, it's all electricity, right? You have the voltage and the amps. You have to learn about all of that and how to manipulate that when it's coming out of it's coming out of the torch, right? You have MIG torch, you have stick welding, you have TIG welding, you have flux core welding. All very interesting modes of joining two pieces of metal together. And it's a lot of fun. You could actually make it could actually be considered an art in some cases, right? And a lot of TIG welders, they're artists, right? Because of the precision that TIG welding requires, and out of all the other modes of welding. So you got to highlight that to these students, because some people, they're more stimulated with the intellectual, okay, technological aspects of the trades, right? And I don't think that's pushed enough, right? So if you know, I love science ever since I was a kid, right? I love to know how things work. I love to know how nature works, how the world works, how the universe works, and all that. And I think that's what stimulates a lot of people to get into what they get into, at least for me personally. And all these trades, right? Say a plumber, right? When people think of plumbing, oh, you're gonna go and clean out somebody's clogged, dirty toilet and stuff like that. But if you think about the scientific aspects of plumbing, you're talking about knowing how pressure works, water pressure works, right? And all of that, right? So it can get pretty interesting, right? And if you can kind of, appeal to that side of young people about, hey, listen, this is not just some job where you're doing dirty work. No, this is just as intellectual, scientific as any other pursuit, right? That you would go, except that all you're doing is using your hands more and you're using tools more, which makes it, to me, even more interesting, because now it's not just in the head on a piece of paper. You're actually taking that scientific knowledge and applying it out there in the real world. That's the perfect unification of science, right? Science, tech, and using your body, using your hands, right? So yeah, we need to highlight that more. And then I think the main thing, especially in a very unstable economy, is to show that, listen, hey, like I listed before, the earning potential that you can make in doing this, something that you enjoy, something that you're learning from, stimulating yourself mentally and physically. The earning potential is also up there, okay? And maybe we did a bad job at just how we promote it, how we explain it to people, right? To overcome that stigma. So, all right, what else do we need to do? Restore vocational programs in high schools. Yeah, I think that's the big thing right there. And you got some really good. I've seen on the internet and some of these platforms, some guys are doing some really great things. There's one person that he teaches. I don't know what city that's in, but he teaches middle schoolers or something like that, the trades, and he has them. They're doing all kinds of things, learning plumber, soldering, framing, carpentry, all that stuff. And it's young people. I think he got recognized for that. I think it's called M. Jarrett something, M. Jarrett Construction. Let me look him up so you guys can, I'm just not gonna give a half ass shout out to my man right here. I don't want him to look at this and say, oh shoot, can I even find it? Hold on a second here. Oh man, you know what? I'll probably leave the link in the description. I don't want to be on there trying to look this guy up. But yeah, you got a few you got guys on there that into real estate, into building. They're developers. Not the traditional 9-to-5 jobs, but these are things that can actually pay you very well, and they're all trade related. If you're a developer, or a contract, that's the trades right there, right? You need tradespeople in order to do what you do. Okay. So restore these programs, these shop classes, these vocational schools programs in high schools. Okay. Create partnerships between schools and employers. So that's kind of what we did when I used to be a welding instructor. Part of what we did was job placement. So we would teach them how to weld, right, in a short amount of time. It wasn't like some high-tech welding school, but it gave them the basics. And then part of that was to pair them up with employers, right? And to be truthfully transparent, it was a nonprofit, and these nonprofits have to, they have to have some kind of way to show that they're actually providing jobs out there in the world. So they had an incentive to do it as well, right? But I think there's nothing wrong with that. What else? Expand apprenticeship programs with clear career ladders. Make training accessible and affordable, and recognize that not all learning happens in classrooms. Okay. Yeah. So as far as the accessible and affordable part, like I said, I was at a nonprofit when I was a welding instructor, and so a lot of the students didn't have to pay, right? So they just had to qualify. They had other criteria where we qualified them to come into the program, but they didn't have to come out of pocket. All right, and I think that's great. I think that was a great part of that. People aren't being priced out or excluded, right? So yeah, we have to start implementing all these things. And you don't have to be a big nonprofit to do that, right? You can start your own thing. You can have if you're a tradesperson, you're an electrician, welder, plumber, HVAC person, and you really care about the community. You care about the young people, or even your own family, right? You may want to start a program yourself, right? And that could mean you just inviting a group of kids over to the house, or to a building that or somewhere, to a park or something, and teach them the basics of what handing on that knowledge, and giving kind of sparking that fire in them to say, listen, I mean, kids love that stuff, right? Especially what they love the most is when you show them that you care, right? When you show them you actually care and you want to teach them something. They love you for that. You can take the hardest kid on the block, even hardest young adult coming from the worst neighborhood. But if you show them that you care, trust me, I've done it many, I used to be a community activist of sorts. And I've been into some of the worst would consider some of the worst neighborhoods, talk to kids and adults who come from some of the worst conditions. And let me tell you, they're soft as putty if you show them that you actually care about them, right? You're not there to take from them. You're not there to disrupt their lives in any kind of way, but you just come in there to help them out, give them some knowledge, talk to them, listen to them, right? That's what people care about. All right. So these are the things we got to do in our own communities, people. Okay. All right. So what about improving working conditions if you're already in the trades? For the trades in general, right? Okay. What can you do to retain people, right? Keep them on there, keep them from quitting, keep them from, saying, oh man, I'm tired of this. Well, you got to offer better wages. Okay. Wages and benefits. Well, and so if you go into a lot of these trades, they have unions, right? So, and they're protected. And once you work yourself up in the trade, you can actually make some, like I said, some decent money. And but that needs to be maintained, right? That's, you can't just play with people's money. I know how that feels when people play with your money. You have to provide advancement opportunities. It's just like on any other job. If you have people there and you're not offering them a way to advance or grow, right? Whether it's get more money over time or actually grow and learn more, and so they can be more capable and marketable in their field, right? You have to offer them those opportunities to do that. If you don't, people are going to start feeling like, oh man, I'm kind of feeling stuck and feeling claustrophobic, right? When it comes to advancement. Okay. So if there's a climate of, like glass ceiling where, you're not letting certain people come up because of the nepotism and all this other stuff, that there's a lot of negative stuff goes on in the trades. I know that. Then that's going to affect the trades in general as well. A lot of people are not going to want to come into it. And it's, it's going to run people off. And you don't want to do that because once again, it has widespread consequences. And maybe, as far as say a skills trade shortage, like we're experiencing right now. Okay. Create inclusive cultures that welcome everyone. Well, man, that's loaded right there, because in a lot of the trades, there's been a culture and a history of racism, a history of exclusionary, tactics to keep certain groups out. Or if you let them in, you don't let them. You only let them into a certain point. So you want to maintain that good old boy culture, right? So that right there can be detrimental. It has been detrimental. We see what's going on in the country today. Not that it hasn't been going on already. It's been going on since the inception of the country. But it's definitely been in the trades. Okay, definitely there. So if that isn't corrected or addressed, then you're going to have a lot of people not going to get into it either. Or if they get into it, they're going to realize, hey, I came into this poisoned atmosphere, poisoned with all these biases. They're not going to want to stay. They're not going to want to stay because who wants to be in a hostile work environment? Nobody, right? Nobody. So that's not going to happen overnight. Obviously, that part of it's probably that's probably, who knows if it'll ever happen, because you can't legislate, you can't create rules to say, oh, you should, you could say, we're not going to discriminate. No, there's people get around that all the time, and so you create this atmosphere that's very negative. And once again, you have a shortage because of that. And so, anyway, leverage technology. It says technology can actually help the shortage. Augmented reality for training and remote assistance. Now, I did a video on a augmented reality training for welders. You can look back in the catalog. I'll have to look it up again. But yeah, it was where, you put on some goggles, and you have this gun, and you're actually welding in a digital world, in a virtual world. And it's if you go offline, like you're running a bead, right? You're running a bead, and if you stray off of the designated path of your bead, then it'll alert you inside the virtual images, the graphics. It'll alert you, hey, you're going off course, right? So you can train yourself how to have a steady hand when you weld, right? You don't need a teacher or anybody looking at you. So yeah, they have these technologies out there. You got to leverage these things. Better tools that make work more efficient. Okay, automated systems that handle routine tasks, improve safety equipment that reduces injury. So all that comes without saying. Everybody wants better tools, all right? Sometimes you can't afford them, right? But obviously that's the goal. And sometimes you really don't need like some better tool. You just need to know how to use what you have, right? So the goal isn't to necessarily, the goal is basically just to make the work environment better. Okay. And so that's one way. All right. Almost done, guys. All right. All right. Let's see here. All right. So at the end of the day, the internet, okay, requires trades workers to build an infrastructure. Without an infrastructure, you don't have an internet. So you can say that the internet is the infrastructure and the infrastructure is the internet. Or you can just say that without infrastructure, you don't have anything, right? So infrastructure equals tradespeople. And if there's a shortage, then the lifestyle eventually the lifestyle that you have now with access to the internet will suffer one day, and we'll all feel it. Okay, so don't knock tradespeople, right? And it's a very serious deal if you're taking a bird's eye view of what could eventually happen if we keep going in the direction that we've been going and not prioritizing the trades, right? Everything depends on it. Okay. So let's see. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. Appreciate it. Hope you learned something from this. And I will see you in the next one. All right. Take care.